Hello, I'm Bob, and here's something that happened in our church recently. Jim Wallace, or Lord Wallace of Tankerness in Orkney, moderator of the Church of Scotland for the last year, he visited Forfar churches last week. Lord Wallace and his wife Rosemary visited the Big Kirk shop in East High Street before a guided tour of our redeveloped church with Reverend Barbara Ann and our team. They toured the building and they visited Chimes Playgroup upstairs, which was particularly interesting for Rosemary as she was a speech therapist in Orkney schools. Jim thought the modernised sanctuary was light and airy and warm, admiring the recirculating heating system. They were both informed about the removal of the old organ in 2016 and its new home in Poland, and hoped that we would get to visit Grajewo soon, when conditions in Eastern Europe allowed. Lord Wallace remarked on the twinning arrangement that East and Old have with Zuglo Church in Budapest. He visits Hungary and Ukraine in the final weeks of his year of office, before he hands over to the next moderator during the General Assembly at the end of this month. Our guests enjoyed a delicious two-course lunch, including a Cameron steak pie prepared by the church ladies. Jim Wallace served as MP and MSP for Orkney and has been a life peer in the House of Lords since 2007. He was Deputy First Minister of Scotland from 1999 to 2005, and during that time he served twice as Acting First Minister. He was formerly leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats. He is a QC and served as Advocate General for Scotland. He's an elder in St Magnus Cathedral in Kirkwall and is only the second non-minister to become moderator of the whole national church. His year of office has been mainly in lockdown conditions, but since restrictions have eased, he has travelled extensively, meeting hundreds of people in churches and other settings. He and his wife are ambassadors for the Church of Scotland, and they pick up on new initiatives and ideas from the people they visit and pass them on. We in Forfar found them down to earth and very approachable. They mixed well, and they both made a point of moving around the social area to sit with different church members. They're good listeners and are genuinely interested in other folks' lives and faiths, whether in the UK or overseas. I found myself thinking about that later, and just how difficult it is to be a good listener. Are you a good listener? Are you tempted to talk about yourself when in company and not pay attention to the other person? You're not alone. Benjamin Franklin decided to take stock of himself one new year and try to figure out why he seemed to alienate people and why he lost friends so easily. He discovered that one of his major flaws was that he was not willing to listen to others. He had all of the answers and was arrogant. He did not need to listen to other people's foolish opinions. Franklin did an amazing thing. He learned to listen and became one of America's most famous diplomats. His whole life and the history of America was changed by his learning to listen. He learned that when you talk, you only say what you know. But when you listen, you learn what someone else knows. In spite of the fact that listening is such a vital part of learning and life, it's perpetually on the verge of being a lost art. The reason is because nobody is training their ears anymore. For centuries, the ear was the key to learning. All through the Bible times, this was the case. We could spend hours just looking at all the references to the ear in the Bible. It was by means of the ear that the wise sought knowledge. It was the constant battle of God to get his people to listen to his word. They have ears, but they don't hear, is the sad note in the Psalms and the prophets. One of the most frequent sayings of Christ in the Gospels is that he that has ears to hear, let him hear. Reading has only been the primary source of learning for the last couple of centuries, but because of the dominance of books, people have ceased to think of the ear and have gone overboard in training the eye. We think that the Bible days are long gone and that we have progressed beyond the need to focus on the ear. Many people no longer read after they leave school or college, and for the rest of their lives they are most influenced by what they hear. In court, people on a jury decide the fate of others by what they hear and not by what they read. Someone very briefly summed up much of the history of the relation between God and man by two big questions. Man says, God, I have prayed and prayed and prayed. Why don't you answer? And God says, man, I have answered and answered and answered. Why don't you listen? On October the 30th, 1938, at 8 p.m, CBS broadcast the famous radio programme The War of the Worlds, with Orson Welles narrating. There was a clear statement before and after that 1 hour programme that it was all fiction. Local stations reminded people during the breaks it was all fiction. But the American people were so poorly trained in listening that their prejudice took over. They heard what they thought was being said and not what was actually being said. The result was panic for many, with emergency calls to police and the army about an alien invasion. A study later revealed that people who did listen just relaxed and enjoyed the programme without stress. 1 out of 6 of those tuned into the radio were not listening to the message, but to their own inner fears. Here's a poem by Ruth Bell Graham expressing how God can be our listener. Lord, when my soul is weary and my heart is tired and sore, and I have that failing feeling that I can't take it any more, then let me know the freshening found in simple childlike prayer, when the kneeling soul knows surely that a listening Lord is there. I'll just finish with a look back to Wednesday's visit. After lunch, I presented our guests with 2 vacuum-packed Forfar bridies as a going-away gift and a reminder of their visit to the town. Jim and Rosemary laughed when I told them about the furore in Forfar in 2018, when an Angus councillor made disparaging comments about our local delicacy, prompting Barbara Ann to push the sales drive for the big Kirk bridies. Together, we all sang my little song. A bridie for me, a bridie for me, if you're nae a bridie, you're nae use to me. A pasty is braw, a mince pie and a', but the Forfar Kirk bridie's the pride o' them all. Thanks for listening, and blessings to you all.